The story begins here. I'm 22 years old. It's a snowy winter day high up in the mountains, and I sit in the basement of this house on my mother's cleaning bucket, trying to take a dump because the drain pipes broke and the toilet is unusable. And my father is a very practical man. He came up with the idea to simply shovel a bit of snow in the bucket and do our business in there. But it's very uncomfortable. Who of you have ever sat on a bucket before? One. Is it uncomfortable or no? Yeah, at least for us Europeans, because let me demonstrate. You cannot really sit on a bucket, right? You have to squat over it like a professional skier. And it's okay in the first minute, but in minute 2, it starts getting really, really uncomfortable because your thighs become rock hard and they start burning like fire. And as I said, we Europeans are not used to that. And I'm used to taking my time on the toilet, at least 10 or 15 minutes. So I need a solution. I need a solution fast. And as I look around in the basement, I see a pair of skis leaning against the shelves. And it comes to me like an epiphany. All I have to do is lean the ski on a lower shelf in a roughly 45 degrees angle, parallel over the bucket. So I can sit on them very easily, problem solved. Problem solved. Not only for myself, also for my little sisters who were about this and this size, and my parents. So the ramp seems to allow all body sizes to use it, which I found interesting because you have to know that I was a student of industrial design, searching for a subject for my diploma thesis. And so I talked to my professor, and I said, I want to reinvent the toilet. And he thinks it's silly, because the toilet is a thing that hasn't changed in the last 100 years. But he likes the idea, so I go for it. First thing I do is I get deep into ergonomics, trying to find the ideal position for doing the job. Then I build a ramp, proving that the idea actually works, not only for myself, but also for other body types, lightweights and heavyweights, and elves and giants. And from there, I start the design process. And step by step, the shape develops, like chiseling a sculpture out of a stone block. And as I build the prototype, I call it latrina obliqua. You're laughing as if you understood Latin. It's Latin for skew toilet, very simple, okay? So I do the presentation at university. It's a full success. I get my A, and there's even a small report in the local newspaper. Mission accomplished. End of story. Not quite yet. Mission, fate wants it that a young photographer is in town. A young photographer who works for a large press agency. He sees the newspaper, sees my toilet, finds it interesting, comes to university. We bump into each other, we talk. And he takes this picture. And because he's working for a press agency, before I know it, I'm in newspapers all over the country. Literally everywhere. This was before the internet. I get phone calls from Stuttgart, from Hamburg, from Munich, from Berlin, from everywhere. I saw you in the newspaper with a toilet. So yesterday I was just a nobody. Today I'm Mr. Toilet. And what happens when you're all over the place? Of course, television calls. They invite me to a talk show. So here I am, sitting in a TV studio, surrounded by cameras and crew and lights and whatnot, the famous host in front of me, And suddenly, the whole story from sitting on my mother's bucket to now sitting in a TV studio plays all out again in my mind's eye. And I think, how did it happen? How could a foolish idea get so far? And I was so deep in my thought that I totally missed the first question of the host. You see it in my face. I had no idea what he was talking about. So, disaster on live TV, you can imagine. Yeah. My grandmother wouldn't care much. She was very proud of me. And so were my parents, and so was the whole village. Meanwhile, the industry had taken notice. They wanted to know, what is that cultural revolution, weird toilet thing? And the oldest and most prestigious company invited me to their factory. Beautiful, beautiful place. So here I am with my skewed toilet, surrounded by a bunch of experts, technicians, engineers, marketing guys. And after a long and hefty debate, they come to the conclusion that this product is impossible to mass produce or sell. Because let's face it, it's just too strange of a toilet. And a toilet is a place where we're not ready for experiments, right? So the project fails, at least from a commercial point of view, and Latrina Obliqua disappears in the basement and vanishes into oblivion. End of story? Of course not. I still have time, right? Yeah. We jump 29 years later. I'm in the city of Kiev for work, and I have about 3 hours left until my next appointment, so I walk. It's a beautiful city, but it's hot. It's a very hot day in July, and I decide to go into a museum because I like museums and they have air conditioning. So I open maps and simply choose the nearest one, which happens to be this museum. Very beautiful place, and it's called Museum of Toilet History. True story. What a coincidence, right? Yeah, let's check out the history of toilets. Great. I'm the only visitor, and a very kind guide named Oleg offers me a free tour. How great is that? And he shows me the whole collection. And I present myself as a former expert on toilets. And we had a great chat. And then I asked for a word with the director. He's out of town, so I leave him a note saying, "Dear sir, thank you very much for everything. It's an impressive collection indeed. But may I say, it misses one piece." That's all I said. 2 days later, I had returned home. I get an email from the director himself saying, "Please reveal the secret, and would you be so kind to send some pictures?" And then it comes to my mind, but where is the toilet? I hadn't seen it in almost 30 years, and in what condition would it be? So I run down the basement, I move things under things, behind things, until I find the actual box that I had built with my grandpa 30 years ago. Wrinkled tape everywhere, handle with care stickers on each side. And like an archaeologist, ever so gently, I open it with a knife, very carefully, very slow, like a treasure almost. And there it is, Latrina Obliqua in absolute mint condition, like brand new. So I take pictures, send them over to Kiev, and they reply immediately, delighted, begging for it to be in their permanent collection. I decide to donate it to the museum, and therefore the owners of the museum decide to come all the way from Kiev in Ukraine to Cologne in Germany to pick it up personally. Now, how do you hand over a donation such as this? I had never done that before. You cannot just pop it in the trunk of a car in a parking lot, right, and wave them goodbye. No, this calls for a ceremony. But where? I have a friend who is one of the finest location scouts in Germany for cinema, So I call him, and he thinks about it about almost 2 days. And then he calls back and he says, I have the ideal location. The Chandelier Hall. The Chandelier Hall was designed in the late 19th century for the inauguration of the sewer system of Cologne by the Emperor of Germany. Well, the Emperor never came, but the hall still exists. So I call the owners, the wastewater company, and they say, no way, you cannot rent this glorious space for a private event. And I say, no, it's not a private event. It is a proper official donation ceremony between the city of Cologne and the city of Kiev, so to speak. And they say, well, in that case, yes, but under 2 conditions. 1, the CEO of our company joins the event. 2, you hand us a list with all the invited journalists. I don't have such list. But I agree, because at that point there's no return, right? So now I'm in deep shit. I call another friend, who is a former journalist, and he's well connected in the city. I tell him the whole story. He falls down his chair laughing, literally. And he gets up again and says, okay, don't move, I'll make some calls. Half an hour later, he calls back and says, good news. Europe's biggest newspaper is going to cover the story exclusively. You don't have to do anything. Which is good news, but I never wanted it to be so big, you know? So the day comes, the big day comes, and so is the Ukrainian delegation and the CEO with a whole entourage and the media team, and I with a bucket and a pair of skis. And I hand out small bouquets of parsley against the smell, and then we descend. And imagine grown-up people, highly paid professionals with parsley bouquets here, descending in the stinking underworld of Cologne to see the weird toilet presentation. The absurdity of the situation, can you imagine that? It couldn't get any absurder. So I thought. So the ceremony starts with an opening speech by the CEO, festive and serious as you expected. And then it's my turn. And as I'm standing there, in front of the small crowd, suddenly 2 voices pop up in my head. You know, the voices we all have sometimes, with very opposite characters. One is the careful guy, the nerdy type, always saying, I don't know, you know, maybe not. The other guy is the cool guy, the rock star type, you know, saying, smoking. And he says, I have a great idea. Why don't you pull down your pants? And the nerd says, what? No. No. This is totally inappropriate. This is a ceremony event. These people don't expect anything like that. And come on. You know, these people came 2,000 kilometers to see you, man. Give them a show. They deserve it. So, next thing you know, I'm sitting there with my pants down. I had already, when I started opening my trousers, I saw the eyebrows of the CEO rising, you know, in total surprise. And the nerd type said, bad idea, bad idea. But yeah, well, I explained the bucket ski principle, I pull up my pants again, I unveil latrina obliqua, perfect. There was laughter, there was applause, there was flashes, you can imagine. So jaws dropped, cameras raised, and it was a perfect underworld presentation. And next day, boom, front page. And more press reviews after that, you can imagine. So later that year, I was invited to Kiev to the grand opening of a special exhibition dedicated to latrina obliqua on the occasion of World Toilet Day. No, don't laugh, it's a serious thing. And I was invited as a special guest. And again, I had the opportunity to pull down my pants in front of a large audience and national press and national Ukrainian television. This marks the peak of the career of my mother's cleaning bucket. Okay, so what is this story about? Is it about a young designer or a design object? No. Is it about this cleaning bucket who went from being filled with poop and snow to standing on a pedestal in the shining light of a museum? And look at it, now it's even giving a TEDx talk, right? But no. What this story is really about is foolishness. Because allowing yourself to be foolish and bold sometimes is an act of generosity. It took me a long time to understand that. But it is generous because you allow people to laugh at you. It creates joy, it breaks rules, and it takes you places. I promise you that. Thank you very much.